bonding.
Yeah. All right, it is 6:16 on August 27th. I call Park Authority meeting to order.
Oh, man.
I have two announcements before we get started. First, and perhaps most importantly, the microphone is in the ceiling, very sensitive, and will pick up your side conversations. You don't want them broadcasted online. That's very, very quiet. Or online, knock yourself out. The other thing, I do want to welcome, and we can all say hello during board matters, part of the meeting. I do want to welcome and say hello to Mike Reynolds, our newest board member, taking the place of Ken Quincy, who stepped down last month. Mike spent nearly 40 years at the National Park Service. So I think you know a little bit about parks, so really looking forward to having him join us. Expertise. All right, that's it. Linwood, you're up.
Like to call the planning and development meeting to order. And turn it right into it.
Thank you, sir. Brendan Hannafin, Park Development Director. Thank you for having me tonight. We're going to talk about the CIP bond strategy number 4, which is the bridge funded projects and the status of our strategy.
Worked early.
Don't curse at it, the microphone will pick it up. You're right here next
Right
to
there.
Bill. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this just started just a brief reprise of what we've been doing for the last few months. The park board has reviewed 3 bond presentations recently outlining next steps for completion of the current bond cycle and development of the 2026 bond. Bond strategy number 1 was an overview, CIP bond strategy overview, which was an update on developing a strategy for the upcoming 2026 bond cycle decision-making and prioritization process. Bond strategy number 2, which we're going to reprise tonight in this presentation, was approval to use available bond project balances for focused work plan initiatives to close out the 2020 bond program. And remember, we're going from 4 to 6 years, so that's pretty important exercise. Bond strategy number 3 was how we're putting it all together, all the planning and different studies that go along with developing our current bond and our next bond, specifically for developing the 2026 bond. And tonight we'll go bond strategy number 4, which is bridge funded project review for planned life cycle replacements for rec centers and facilities where we are in the development, and also where we are in the development of the 2026 bond. Okay, again, just to recap, we will no longer bank projects across bond cycles. We are bridging the 2024 to 2026, utilizing unspent bond balance, which is a huge help to us to get our money spent. The potential projects will bring down our capital maintenance backlog and free up cash for the 2026 bond. So we're really getting an additional benefit out of doing this, that we will free up funds for our next bond, more projects on our next bond. Okay,
Just before you go off that slide, sorry, just occurs to me. You go back one more. So we have 103 million in unspent bonds. Do we have the authority to spend all that in the next few years?
This is an older slide. We have much less now. When we came to you before, we were still spending the last 25. So we're down below 70 now, closing in between 60 and 70, and that we'll get very close.
We'll get very close to spending all of that before the 2026 bond.
Yes, and this 10.9 million is a huge part of that.
Got it. Okay,
So,
thank you.
and just reminding you where we took it from, it's the 4 million from the resource projects, 2.2 million from completed project balances.
Next slide.
Oh, sorry. And 4.7 million projects not fully funded. That was projects that we weren't going to be able to complete, and we're shifting to projects that we can do. Again, a very strategic move to help us move forward. Now this is what we're going to talk about today is the facility projects. Doing 2 things at once, it's not good for me. Uh, Facility projects, including rec centers at, just a little over $4 million. That's what we're gonna talk about tonight. This is all part of that larger 10.9 million. We did tell you we'd come back and we talk about a little more specifics on the potential projects that we could do. So for rec center level of effort projects, these projects are based on category 1 funding priorities at rec centers, from our needs assessments. So we know exactly what we need to do next, what's at the end of life cycle. And this lion's share of this money will go into that. Like I said, these are renewal or end of life projects, and they're for facilities and systems that scored a D or an F on our assessments. Stuff that's on the way out, it has to be replaced. So, and I just to remind everybody, Audrey Moore is not included on this list because it'll be a new building. So we don't want to put, unless it's an emergency, we don't want to put any more money into that.
But just so I understand, unless it means that something doesn't work or can't open or, okay.
And that'd be case by case if we have to do that. Now, there are some other projects. These are standalone named projects for end of life
Next slide.
facilities. Sorry, Amy. Laurel Hill Clubhouse mechanical replacement, we have to, that's a money-making facility. We need to replace the mechanical systems there. They're failed. Twin Lakes Bridge replacement, you see from the picture that, they're in really bad shape. They're hanging on with some maintenance work, but they need to be replaced. Franconia Generator Project, this is the grant, this is a little bit of bond funding to match the grant that we have for the ongoing Franconia Generator Project. This will close that project down and complete it. So a historic site roof replacement, which is end of life for sure. And then just mention again, the completion of these projects ahead of the 26 bond. These are projects that are in the 26 bond right now as far as for consideration. That will allow us to consider more projects. So it's really good way to spend our cash flow, get great important projects done, and free up some additional cash for the next bond. So now, the next steps, we're going to continue to come to you all with strategies.
I'm sorry, Brendan, just one point to make on the freeing up. It's freeing up, which is great, but also just remember, the beginning of the next bond is really heavy on Audrey Moore. And so part of it, we're not gonna be able to do as much level of effort, sort of maintenance, general maintenance work those first year, because so much of that cash flow is going towards Audrey Moore. So even though it lets us get in front of it, it's, if you add the 2 years, 2 or 3 years, like the first year, then it's probably gonna be about the same level of effort that we do for maintenance. I just want to.
Yeah, we are certainly front loading our project.
correct, yeah.
So that will help us substantially even operating the buildings. So for our next coming up is our CIP briefing as we go into CIP season. Also the combined PDD, POD quarterly completed project reports. We'll kind of do quarter 2 and quarter 3 together. And then our work plan for my group, which is the full year work plan. That'll be coming in October and November. We'll come back with those updates to 2026 bond progress. That's it. Any questions?
Anybody else have a
I have a
question?
question.
Good.
Just so I understand, you said a couple of times about how this almost puts us in a better position because the next bond, we can do all this stuff. And yet I think, didn't want to go to a 6-year bond cycle because of all sorts of issues. This is a bridge for 2 years. This is a good way to set us up for the next bond cycle, but this doesn't put us in a better position than we would have. The words we're using, the way we're communicating, it sounds like, oh, this is actually a good thing. It's going to put us in this much better position for later.
No, so think of the bridge funding and then the strategy is 2 different things. We have the bridge funding, that's how we're paying for the gap in the 2 years, about 25-ish million every year. The strategy for how we're gonna spend that money with the bridge funding, because of the fact that we have to do Audrey Moore in the beginning, is leading towards a strategy. It's not necessarily a good thing in general, where we are right now. It's just the reason why we came up with that strategy as opposed to doing a new project or a new park someplace else is because we knew we're gonna have a little bit of a desert those first 2 years. And so that's why the strategy of how to spend that 10 million. So you're right, yeah. Yeah, no, you're right, yeah.
No little projects. That's the latest.
Fewer.
way to say.
Fewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we always have to fix stuff that's broken and, or, you know, whatever it is, but we wouldn't be able to dedicate as much of the level of effort that we would. But we use, yes.
So I talk to constituents, to talk about the things that are. Not gonna be anything.
You can blame it all on
There.
me and Andrew.
Does anybody?
At least we're not blaming Linwood and Mount Vernon anymore. Now it's put over, we'll blame
Yeah.
Kyle enough.
Anybody have any thoughts? Is basically, real like high level look, wanted us to spend money. Yeah, this should not be one of the reasons why it's a 6 year. Any hope of getting back to a 4 year cycle after this 6? Is that being talked about? Is that subject being approached anywhere?
So, no, I mean, yes and no. Now's not the time to talk about it. I think that what'll happen is, there's a time frame. I think it was 3 years ago. I don't really remember, and I don't want to look over at him because I don't expect him to know the answer either to Josh, but like at some point in time, we were talking about, at what point did we talk about the CIP? So the schedule would be, this October, we're gonna be talking to you guys about the CIP, and then we go to the county executive and I present the CIP to the county executive, then we go to the planning commission, and then we present the CIP to the planning commission. These ones, it's already baked, right? We're presenting and we're maybe figuring out one or two subjects, but it's baked in, like this 2026 CIP is locked. But if you back up like 2 or 3 years, it was when we were trying to create the CIP and we were actually hustling for how much money we were gonna get. And so when that time frame happens for the 2032, that's when the conversation about the 4 to 6 year bond cycle. So we're right now going back to figuring out when that is, because it's really important to know when that CIP is baked, so we know when it's like pushing. So we would back up a year and then start that conversation.
So
But-
we haven't started the conversation. But we have.
No, yes.
Anybody else have any questions about this?
Just one.
No.
Oh, go ahead, Mike, did. Then I see Mike's hand.
Mike?
Oh, I thought I saw another thing, Mike. Brennan, can you talk about what the CIP briefing is gonna look like? How's that gonna be presented? It's gonna be discussed.
We're gonna present to you all before we go to, as Jay mentioned, the next steps to the county. So we'll be presenting you a presentation on our next year's CIP.
Okay.
It's a 5 year CIP, so the next year on that CIP. So, and like Jay mentioned, there's not gonna be a lot of new things. It's gonna be what we've been doing, but we do need to update that.
It's gonna be a very, very high level because we're doing, you'll see in the Director of Matters that we're also doing a orientation for board staff, which we'll get into later. But we're doing the same presentation. So you're gonna see it, you're gonna see the exact same presentation that I will give to Ryan that will happen at the planning commission. And so generally speaking, every year we kind of pick like a common theme. Like last year it was the rec center, 1 year was a rec center issue, and 1 year it was like trying to understand the 4 to 6 year bond cycle and, you know, whatever it is. This year, I don't know what we talked about, but it'll be, so it's kind of teaching them a thing and then sort of walking out our major projects, but it's not getting into the weeds on specific individual projects.
But at least we've gone to a 5 year CIP versus a 10 year CIP. It's much more.
Yes.
It used to be a 10 year CIP. It's changed.
A 10-year funded CIP or a 10-year with
10-year
2
funded
years?
CIP.
Before I go, if I could just clarify something on the grant project, the generator, that's just a little bit of money from the bond. It's already been paid for. It's just, this is a change order that we need to execute. So it's less than $20,000.
And that's a really cool project. Can you just tell them a little bit about the project, just in general, about what that is?
Yeah, it's an emergency shelter. Our rec centers are emergency shelters. We received a state grant to put a generator in Franconia, which is one of our more important, bigger facilities. It's grant funded. It's on side of the building. If you get a chance to go by there, you'll see a great big generator, and we're just about ready to power. It's got power to it. We just got a little more to do to get it going. So it's
What are the other sites that are on that list? Spring Hill, is it one of them?
Spring Hill and not anymore. The two
Not
rec,
anymore.
the rec centers with gyms.
Yes, it's the Race Coast gyms. So the idea is there's shelter in place or some sort of natural disaster. It's a place that they would.
There was a lot of talk about that. I think the derecho.
Yeah.
The derecho came through.
Thanks for asking that. Anybody else? Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other? Development. Seeing none, by the development committee is adjourned.
Is it Katie or Josh or both? Okay, sign here. Talk with both of us. Good evening, Josh Coleman, Division Director, joined by Katie Miga, Business Office Branch Manager. I'm going to start with the FY25 carryover.
All right, so the first action item is the bond. So this references back to, what Brendan was presenting. So we have here our FY25 actuals. So our beginning balance was a little under 4.5 million. With bond sales and premium, that got us an additional 25 million to spend for the year. So the total available at for the year was 29.5 million, and we spent 29.2 million. So that gave us an ending balance of 244,000 for FY25. So now the plan for FY26 is we're going to spend down that 2020 bond. So we're starting with that 244. With bond sales, we're getting 76 million. So bringing our total available to 76 million, 314,000. And the plan is to spend all of that down and prep for the 2026 bond.
I want to say a lot of spending at the very end of the year with Mount Vernon project finishing. So we came in about as close as you could come to our cash flow number with the kind of major expenses that we had hitting it.
This brings us to the action items of approval of the FY25 carryover and then the FY26 revised budget.
That's another question, all right? Sure, let's start with that. For those of us who are new and for people in the audience, can you just talk about cash flow?
So every year we have a fixed amount that we're able to spend, and it's a part of the county's overall cash flow. So even though we may have $76 million sitting there, we can't spend that all in a single year, right? So we are given a cash flow number at the beginning of the year working with DMB that plays into the overall cash spend across the county. Last year, our cash flow number was $29 million. Based off, maybe in some years, based off where projects come in, we might spend a little bit less or a little bit more. And so we are not able to exceed out of our bond spending that cash flow number at the beginning of the year. And so when we talk about major projects and we're talking about something like Audrey Moore that we know is going to cost a significant amount of money, the cash flow spending and the planning of what can we spend in any given year is a big part of how we then are able to fund other projects or look at what projects can come in. So right now we're typically at a $25 million cash flow number every year. Starting next year, we should go up to 30 million, which is starting to play into what we'd look forward in the 26 bond, having a higher cash flow number. We work with DMB, knowing what projects might be coming up, of what flexibility we can get against something like an Audrey Moore. We might need a higher cash flow number one year and have it be a lower overall number in a future year. So
Yeah, and Lynn, would you, to sort of tag on to your question earlier, when we're talking about the 4 to 6 to like put a mark, that cash flow is also around the same time is not having that flat cash flow and being able to,
Yeah.
we're the only agency with a flat
You're
cash
reading
flow.
the Second factor. Well, this is better than the way it used to be. Excellent.
It is X amount, yeah, it still is.
But there's some flexibility.
yeah, but within
Not as much. as we-
yeah.
Well, but to Linwood's point before, they'd say, this is your, you get 25 million, if you have a $30 million project, doesn't matter, you've got to wait till next year to get extra off. Right. And you're saying that you now have flexibility. But you said 30 million would be the new cash flow number? But that's 76 million. So how does that work?
2026.
So that's 76 million in our total 2016 and 2020 bond dollar value remaining.
Oh,
And so next
okay.
year we'd have 25, this year we have $25 million that we can spend, and next year we'd have $30 million that we could spend. Regardless of what the total balance is remaining, that's how much money we can spend out of the bond program in that year.
So we'll end and start a new bond with about 40, whatever the delta is, 40-some million, sort of in the bank that we really can't spend. So the cash flow for the next 6-year bond cycle, every year cash flow should add up to the end balance. So what we'll be doing when we're working with DMB is if projects outside the county, because it's the countywide cash flow. If a safety building or whatever slips or whatever it is, and they're like, oh, it's like, we still have a little bit of delta, give us more cash flow, we can sort of spend it.
The other piece, which you're not seeing reflected here because it's not bond spending, is the CIP assist dollars that we've been getting from the county that also help make up sometimes when we're over 29 million and we have additional spending. Mount Vernon again was an example this year of tapping into that CIP assist. I would point out it's just critical that the CIP assist continue for us because of some of these cash flow issues and challenges when you talk about major projects. The carryover package this year has a lower amount, 2 million compared to the 5 million that we've gotten. That's based off the county's overall budget, what they're able to look at. But that CIP assist, we have been slowly tapping into, and we certainly expect to need to do that continuing in the future.
Just to be very clear, when we start the 2026 bond, assuming it passes, in the beginning of calendar year 27, we will still have 40 million-ish of unspent bond dollars from previous bonds.
It may be less than that, depending on the timing of when
Give or take
26.
a couple $1 million, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 million dollars. So we're still over the 26 bond cycle, that 6-year period from 2027 to 2033. We'll have 30 to 40 million dollars. We have to hopefully the county lets us fit in, or we're just.
Just like today, we've got 2016 bond dollars still available,
Yeah,
even as we have the 2020 bond come into play, right?
That's gonna make the case or not. It's one of the cases of, we want to sign in a home base with $0 left. We want to try to figure out how we can spend that 40 million, because we can't make an argument. If we end up underspending our cash flow every year, that number just keeps on going up. We get to year 4, if we're sitting on $100 million again, because we didn't spend all of our cash flow, then we can't, it's hard to make the argument to go to a 4-year bond when there's, right.
Any other questions on this first item?
Yeah, I still have the initial question on what is it exactly that we're doing here? I was reading the backgrounds, I got very confused, in particular, like the first and third paragraph seem like total non sequiturs. It seems like all you're asking us for is an increase of $19,000 to the park renovation and upgrade, but maybe I'm totally misunderstanding this.
The approval would be for the approval of the carryover, so the FY 25 actuals and the revised, which I think is on the slide,
Okay.
the actual action items.
So the action item is simply approving how we ended the year on
Got
the
it.
actuals and what is being carried over into 26.
Yeah.
That's,
Sounds good.
So consensus to move this item forward.
I'm sorry. I don't understand what item, because the first action item is the Park Authority Bond Construction Fund.
That's.
No, the first action item in the package is for the FY 2025 carryover budget review status, Park Authority Bond Construction Fund. And that goes to what he was saying, that places I read it, it's back to what Kyle was saying. I read it as you're asking for the amount of 19,733, not the approval of what was on the slide before. Do I just not I don't understand something.
If you look at the actual agenda item that was in our package, and I know there was an issue with some of the other documentation further on, and I don't know if it's been updated on the website yet. The very first thing is FY 2025 carryover budget review status, Park 30 bond construction fund. That's an action item. The second one is FY 2025 carryover and budget review, and then FY 26 revised budget for the park improvement fund.
And I'd go a step further and say action 1, if you look at the issue on the breakout, is the approval of the FY 2025 carryover budget review submission for Fund 3,400.
3,400, which is Park 30 bond construction.
Let me point out, the bottom line number in the last paragraph corresponds to what's on this slide.
Right, which is why I'm just
76
confused that it's the
million.
construction, I'm just not.
so the park bond construction fund is 400.
Right.
That you're seeing there. I think, are you all asking about the 19,000?
Well, that does throw me because it seems to have nothing to do with the other two paragraphs. So that is a little confusing, but
Yeah.
also I just want to be sure that the actions we're taking correspond with the information on the agenda.
Yeah, so I believe the 19,000 is probably in error in this package relating to this. The overall action item should just be approving the carryover, and I apologize for the disconnect on the, paragraph in there that's throwing that off, but
Okay.
approving the carryover package for the bond fund, which is the 3,400 park bond construction fund. And you see the amount there of the $76
Yeah, the
million.
fund statements jives with what's there up on the
So
screen.
this is for that fund.
Yep.
So based upon the description.
Sorry.
Is there a consensus now to move this forward to the board? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry.
All right, second item, please.
Okay, so second action item is for the Park Improvement Fund. First, just a quick summary of the revenue that came in last year. So just over 9 million in revenue. You can see the breakdown by telecom, 971,000. Interest, we got 864,000. Donations, 1.1 million. Easements was 943,000. Other and transfers in, 21,000, and then proffers, 5.2 million. So that totals up to that revenue of 9.18 million. Okay, so this, yeah. Right, so this is the summary. So you can see in FY 25 actuals, the revenue line item is that 9.18 million there. So our beginning balance was nearly 37 million. So then we took in the 9.18 million. So our total available for FY 25 was 46 million. Our total disbursements was the 6.27 million there, giving us an ending balance of the 39.86 million. So then you can see, and then the Lawrence Trust Reserve remains stable at 1.5 million. So then you can see the FY 26 revised has that, the ending balance that is carried forward, that 39.86. Then we have a transfer in, which we will talk about where that comes from, of 2.9 million. So making our FY 26 total available budget of 42.76 million. So we have a budgeted amount of total disbursements of 41.252. So that ending balance would be the Lawrence Trust Reserve.
And I want to point out just, the ending total disbursements for FY 26. That's the way that these capital funds are shown every year, that we'd spend the full amount, even though we know we're not going to actually spend $41 million next year out of the Park Improvement Fund. So that is the way it's recorded in the carryover packages and the fund statements with DMP. And as Katie said, the $2.9 million transfer in, that's coming from the Park Revenue Fund, which we will go into detail in the next action item or information item and action item on the revenue fund, and the $2.9 million transferred.
That's the current quote profit on the revenue fund from the current fiscal year.
A chunk of it.
Yeah.
If it materialized. Any further questions on this item? Consensus to move it to the board.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item.
All right, and then next, before we get into the action item piece for the revenue and operating fund, we're going to go through the FY 25 review before we get to the FY 25 carryover.
So right in a little bit to the revenue fund net goals that relates a little bit to the 2.9 million that you just saw. Wanted to just quickly talk about when we think about the revenue fund and talk about it at year end. If there is a balance that is remaining in the revenue fund, there's a question at that point of what are we doing with that balance? So just wanted to remind everybody, or for the first time for some of you, there's typically 3 areas that we focus on when we have a net in the revenue fund. The first, and what you're seeing here just play out in that previous $2.9 million transfer, is that we transfer to our revenue sinking fund, that's within the overall improvement fund, to address deferred maintenance needs for revenue facilities, things like maintenance and equipment at rec centers, golf courses, other revenue facilities. That's the $2.9 million that you just saw. The other two areas, we work towards long-term revenue stabilization reserve. So having a reserve in our overall revenue fund, if we have issues or problems making ends meet at year end, that we have a reserve available that we can tap into. For example, during COVID, we tapped fully into our reserves to make ends meet when revenue wasn't keeping up with the expenses. And then lastly, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this in the next slide or two, but we've been working since 2019 to slowly build up a deferred revenue balance over time directly related to programs that we offer. And we'll spend some more time on the next slide. I just want to kind of set the stage when we talk about a net at year end in the revenue fund. It's those three areas that we focus on what we would do with that net. Obviously, the revenue is covering the expenses typically as part of our annual budget and our annual net. But when we have a balance, these are the three areas that we focus on where that balance would be distributed.
Okay, so we can jump into the deferred revenue. So first, a little bit of background, especially for anybody that's new. So deferred revenue is also called unearned revenue. So it's any money that, you know, a company or we have received for goods and services that have not yet been provided. So it is actually considered a liability because we still owe the customer something. So once, you know, the goods are shipped, the services are provided, we can actually convert that liability into actual revenue. So that's where the difference comes in between our revenue collected in a fiscal year and the revenue earned. The easiest example of this is camps, where we, you know, get the revenue in January, but most camps don't take place until the following fiscal year. So the top table there shows the difference in the revenue collected in FY24 versus the revenue that was earned in FY24. So there's a very small difference there between the 61 million collected and the 60.7 earned. Now in FY25, we collected $63.5 million, but our actual earned revenue, so once you take out that deferred that goes into FY26, that's where we get down to 60.1 million.
Question.
Yes.
What are some of the reasons why you have it deferred?
So I think Katie hit the primary one. We've collected money maybe in January or February for summer camp registration, and the service isn't offered until July. We didn't actually run the camp until July. And so that we haven't recognized that that revenue is really ours until after we provide the service to the customer.
And the differential is because of, let's say, people signed up for a class but then backed out, or what would account for the?
For why this is showing the difference here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, the last slide, yeah.
From 61 to.
You have a complication between fiscal years and calendar years. So
Yeah, I think the next slide we'll get into, so part of what you're seeing is we have never yet fully deferred for our summer programs. So this has been it was an audit finding back in 2019 that we needed to start to defer for summer programs. We're gonna talk about it here on the next slide. But that disconnect in the amount collected versus the amount deferred is when we make progress on our amount deferred and we see our revenue therefore go down. Katie will try to go through that in this chart and then we can keep talking.
Yeah, so we had always, you know, historically deferred memberships and passes. So that's, you know, golf range passes, rec center memberships, those things were always deferred. Following an audit finding in 2019, that's when we started deferring programs, you know, and camp revenue as well. Obviously, then COVID happened, so that delayed the implementation of working up towards deferring 100% of that program revenue. So program revenue was first deferred in FY23, so once we were coming out of COVID at 40%. The goal established was to increase that program deferral over time up until we get to 100% of deferral. So the chart gives, you know, a snapshot of in 23, how much we deferred, So that would be that 40% of programs and then, memberships and passes, so that we were at 8.6 million, 24, increased it up to 8.9 in 25, because we really did well with camps and classes. That really jumped up that deferral amount to really close to 12 million in 25.
So once you get to 100% and you have 2 consecutive years and you have apples to apples comparison, the next year is going to benefit from the deferred income, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
This is a long-term challenge in how the revenue fund comes in every single year, that today we're at 52.5% of our program deferral. That's a big increase over where we were last year at 32.5. But this every year until we truly hit 100%, as we continue to try to grow and to try to get this closer to 100%, we have a bigger negative revenue impact at year end that we see.
Which for those of us that will forget the details, probably worth a footnote or something when you show us how the camps did, and we go, wait, why wasn't it as good as before?
So we've been working with DMB to footnote the fund statement for, that these impacts of why you're seeing revenue coming in lower is due to us continuing to increase this amount. But yeah, we'll continue to try to highlight this as we are doing well in camps and continuing to grow. It has the impact of increasing that deferral that we need to do even as we try to grow it.
So FY 23 and 24, we're at 40%, FY 25, and we jumped up to 11.8. That's now at 52 and a half.
Yeah, 2023 was at 40%. We actually dropped a little bit in 24, even though, again, as camps grew, the amount grew, even as the percentage went down a little bit, but we jumped back up to 52.5% this year. The goal is, again, to continually try to increase this, but we try to look at it every year of where we're ending the year and what flexibility exists. And all those 3 things that I mentioned earlier in balance, because we still need money to go to the park improvement fund, the revenue sinking fund, to continue to address the deferred maintenance needs. We need to have some reserves and we need to build this up. So we're trying to look every year at how we can balance those 3 competing priorities sometimes of where the revenue fund net can ultimately best address what's going on.
Information item, yes.
I'm still a little confused. So the goal of getting to 100%, that just means trying to sell more?
Not necessarily. It means that we are able to fully defer, on our books, that we are not recognizing any revenue until after we've offered the service, basically.
There was a point made earlier that, for example, companies, if they're selling a physical product and they're over the internet and they're shipping it to you, your credit card is not charged potentially until they actually ship, or maybe it is, but they don't recognize it on their books until they actually ship the product out the door.
Right.
Same thing with our camps. We get the registration money in January physically, and we put it aside, but the camps aren't done until the next fiscal year beginning, or at least part of it, beginning in July 1st. So we can't actually take credit for the money we got in January.
It's like paying for Netflix. You pay an annual fee to Netflix for the next 12 months.
Yeah, so what you're saying, the aim of getting to 100 is we don't touch that money until the next fiscal year. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so at the end of year end, we would ideally be 100% deferring, not recognizing any of that revenue.
As part of
And
this
then the
current,
next year, we'd be recognizing it.
yeah,
Keeping in mind every year that as long as we continue to offer summer camp programs and things that are gonna cross fiscal years, we'll continue to have a big entry at year end that is going to reduce our revenue, so.
okay.
But I get the liability part, but in the year that you recognize the money, the staff can plan to that dollar amount as revenue.
Yes, I mean, we plan around planning for whatever that entry would be, generally at pretty much the same dollar value, but we are recognizing it technically on July 1st to then be able to use it towards our overall staff planning.
Overall revenue stream.
Any other questions on this item? Jonah?
Okay, so one final question on this. So when we get to the point where we are at 100%, then we're going to basically not spend, as Carmen was saying, not spend the money until we've actually fully collected it. And at that point, so in other words, we'd be spending it the following year, is that right? Or would it be
Not sure I fully followed.
Would be
Sorry.
recognized in
Yeah.
our,
Yeah.
the revenue that we're using to run our operations the
We
following
wouldn't be
fiscal year.
counting on it until the following, basically using it the following, okay.
Yeah, you collect it, in January, and don't spend it until July 1.
Boom, okay.
Which is when we're providing the camp, so we use it that following fiscal year to actually provide the service for which we're recognized.
And I guess with classes, that wouldn't actually happen until December, right? Because I mean, you're running classes all, not, right, like the camps are done in the summer. The classes run all year round.
Yeah, so it all depends on really for us, the fiscal year, when the money's collected versus when the service is offered. So we've got various examples. You buy a membership in January, we end up deferring half of that membership. You know, we recognize everything through June 30th, and then July 1 through December 31st, we are deferring that full remaining amount. So
And so is each individual service then gonna have a different date in which it kind of like matures and is ready to be,
Yeah.
wow, that's gonna be a lot.
But we've always done that. So keep in mind, this is part of our annual process, right? Is establishing what is outstanding still that we haven't delivered yet. And so we go through that every year end. For the most part, until we started doing this program deferral, it was a little just baked in. It was a little more consistent year over year and baked into just the typical numbers you would see. Because we have this impact of building from 0 to 100, you're seeing impacts in our fund statement year over year. So.
This is the only place that, is it this earned revenue that is the only place we have to do this accounting game?
Yeah, we are not big fans of the June 30th cutoff. Makes it pretty tough for a summer business like we have, right? So that's a big challenge we have in particular, and I think unique across the county in terms of when our revenue comes in and when we offer a significant number of services. So that's an added challenge every year for Park Authority staff to work through right in the middle of our busiest seasons. So.
Okay, if no further questions, let's move on to the next action item.
Yeah, so this is the overall review of FY '25. So you can see our FY '25 actuals is at 60.1 million, but just to note that we actually collected 63.5. So even though it shows that change, you know, year over year, that it went down, it's really just because we deferred, not that our actual collected revenue went down. So we can look at the change over compensation and the increases there. So compensation is up 1.8 million, and benefits is up almost $1 million. But want to note there that Mount Vernon also opened. So that would be something that was closed, you know, for compensation and benefits perspective, you know, that was closed for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And so this is restaffing there. So that's, you know, that's a part of that overage there. Operating up 761,000, but really we expected it to be 3% up, and it's up 3.7%. So no worries there. Capital equipment, we actually went down. So that's good news. We had a decrease there of 89%. Recovered costs, also a good story there that we increased the amount that we WPFO'd. So really we're saving that money in expenses. So we went from 500,000 to 860,000. So that was a 73% increase. Our transfer out increased a little bit. So that's that debt payment that went up a little bit, but right on budget and right where we expected. So overall, our total expenditures for FY '25 up 2.9 million. But again, a lot of that is coming from the reopening of Mount Vernon and the expenses that come along with that. So if we look at just FY '25, when we defer that revenue, we are technically negative almost 1 million, but then if we brought in what we actually collected is 63.5 versus that 61. So it's, you know, two ways really of looking at that there.
So and just for your all's knowledge, we look at these recommendations and year-end actions, right? As we finish the year and seeing, okay, we've made $63.5 million. What are we able to do then in these buckets that we've referenced? So on our books, then it's going to show as a negative number based off the actions we're then taking to either increase that deferred amount, or we'll also talk on the next couple slides about the 2.9 million. So those are assessed at the end of the year to then bring to you all in these conversations for approval.
On the capital equipment line, is that because we didn't need to spend, or
No.
were we really holding
We-
the line for some reason?
So we held this year on capital equipment, and what you'll see in that 2.9, we asked golf and the rec centers to hold off on capital equipment purchases that we were planning. And what you'll see in that 2.9 million is carve out for golf capital equipment and rec center equipment to be accomplished through that $2.9 million transfer rather than it come out of the fund. So sometimes as we monitor expenses and look at how things may end, we might ask, let's hold on the capital equipment purchase, but if we end the year as we're booking, that we then try to do that through the carryover process.
Is this your only slide on the carryover?
Oh, and then we could show some charts. So this one shows revenue. Again, it looks like our revenue has really flattened out, but FY '25 again, really that 63.5. So it is,
You changed it.
yes. And then expenditures, we can see again, the increase, coming out of COVID, continuing to increase, but for this year, a lot of that was the Mount Vernon reopening.
So
Any other questions? on This carryover presentation. Okay, consensus to move this item forward.
He hasn't
So,
gotten there.
yeah, so that was the information item to try to be clear as we get to the action item here for carryover, because you're gonna see a few things that, again, we wanted to make sure it was clear on why the revenue looks lower.
For now.
So,
So this is a review again of the FY '25 actuals and then that FY '26 budget. So we began FY '25 with 7.7 million in revenue and operating fund. You see that revenue number that we had before. So this is with that deferral removed.
And we would call that 7.7 our,
that was our reserve, our
Yep.
fund balance, which
Yep.
we would call our reserve, which is higher than we would typically have it be at. And that's gonna relate to the next part again, where you see the $2.9 million transfer as part of this.
Yep, so we had total available once, the revenue we made for the year is at 67.8. So then when we add in the expenses, the overall expenses we had and the transfers, our total expenditures for the year is 61 million. So that leaves us a remaining balance of 6.7 million there. So in FY '26, we start with that 6.7 million. So we have our plan, revenue amount and expenses. And you can see in FY '26, that's where that 2.9 million shows up. So you can see through that year, with our planned revenue and expenses, we would get to 5.7 million and then transfer 2.9 to the park improvement fund, which would bring us down to a $2.8 million balance.
so 2.8 in our revenue reserve, which is what, like 5%-ish?
So that's where, again, the balance of increasing the deferred revenue, looking at the move to the improvement fund. We did not do a move to the improvement fund last year at all, which is why the fund balance crept up a little bit this year. So we're trying to slightly course correct again to balance between the three priorities and where things sit today. So.
And then what would adding 2.9 to the park improvement fund put it at? 2.9 or some number higher?
Yeah, so what will it add to the park improvement fund? So I think the park improvement fund was now up to the 41 million
Yeah,
or
okay,
something
that's
like
right,
that.
That's right, yeah.
Keep in mind, much of the money in the park improvement fund is restricted in some way, tied to proffers or telecom or some specific source. So within that park improvement fund, we have what we refer to as the revenue sinking fund, which is where this money is really directed to allow for that, those types of projects that we're
Okay, so
talking
then adding 2.9 to the revenue sinking fund puts us at,
Well, I think that's the next.
okay.
It wouldn't all go to the revenue sinking fund.
Well, it is technically, it's just,
Well,
there's
yeah.
specific carve outs here for what we spend.
So this is the plan of this 2.9 million that moves. This is how it would be divided up. So it's got the two lines for equipment, so 350,000 for golf, 200,000 for rec centers, and then the annual 216,000 for training. Also 475,000 for replenishment of the director's emergency fund, And then the rest of that nearly 1.7 would be allocated for projects and things like that.
So I'll ask for the fifth time.
I don't think there's any money in
Okay,
there.
that's what I was trying to
There's,
do.
we're not adding in to add, what he's asking, are we banking any money for the parking?
Well, I was
for
just
the-
curious if there was anything in there.
There's already something there that
No,
we're
we
adding
spent
to.
it. Yes, no, I think that this would leave we transfer it for for revenue sinking fund.
Okay.
The budget would be 2.9 million. There's
We can
not-
get you what the exact number is remaining in the revenue sinking fund.
Probably pretty close to zero.
Yeah,
then that's fine.
we fully
That's
deplete
all
that.
we're
Yeah,
looking for.
yeah, that's fine.
Look at goal.
There's a goal like 10, is that the one that has the 10%?
No, that's the stabilization, which is just held in
It's just to spend it. like-
No, I was trying to remember which one had the 10%.
Yeah, that's the
Revenue stabilization.
And then going from whatever, 7 million down to 2.8, which is, something approximately 10% down to 5%. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, because we, I think, are making big progress on the borough, which is a choice to jump up that much this year. Confident in both the budget for this year. We'll be coming to you in the near future with the fee conversation, which is where we take an additional deep dive and look at our revenue versus the expenditures for this year. I know that's not everybody's favorite conversation,
It's not
but
mine.
that is, a part of what then goes into the planning for the remainder of the fiscal year. And so the numbers you see today with that
If we
26.
blew up your fee proposal, you might feel less comfortable with the.
Correct. If the fee proposal didn't move forward, then we'd have to have a serious conversation about, what cuts or what we're looking at across the board. But based off of the trajectory of the fund and the services and the way that we've been operating for the last several years, yes, we're comfortable.
Okay.
So any further questions on this 25 carryover review and 26 revised budget? Seeing and hearing none, consensus to move this forward.
Yes.
Yes. Hey. Last time.
Now the main event.
You all only had a certain amount of questions that you guys had. You guys have used like 90% of them. Just keep in mind that in mind. Up to this point.
Yeah. So this is the FY 27 proposed non-recommended budget reductions and requests. This is the first meeting. We've got a few meetings that will continue after this, but we call it the non-recommended budget requests as we are, as we typically say, that none of these are really recommended, right? This is the exercise of the county has given us a target of $1.8 million in reductions that we need to come up with based off the budget picture for next year. And this is what we've come up with. Obviously, our preference would be to have a $0 budget cut as we get into this. Katie's going to take us through the slides and we can answer questions as we go through the presentation.
And just further supplement on that, I think your memo and the board package indicated this, but we've also been given instruction that it is likely that the cuts that each agency or department proposes will in fact be taken.
That's correct. Yeah. In years past, we've sometimes had a higher cut with the expectation that would be reduced down by the county executive. This year, our expectation is what moves forward will be put forward into the proposed budget by the county executive.
So this is just a review of these next couple of meetings and what we're doing for this FY 27 budget development. So here you'll see, everything that we're proposing as far as budget reductions and then also requests. And then the public comment period will open. There is a public comment meeting on September 10th. We don't currently have any agenda items, but that doesn't mean we can't come back if there's anything that you need from us. And then on the 24th, we will come back and that's when you will endorse the reductions and requests so that we can send those forward over to DMB.
When is this officially due to?
It's technically due to DMV a little earlier than we go. We've got our public comment period, so the opportunity to get feedback from everyone and then bring it back to you all.
So they're submitted as draft on.
Yeah, they'll be aware of what is
Yeah.
being, discussed and what's included.
And every other department, everybody else is doing this, but we have to do it publicly.
Just a quick review of the budget guidance that we've received from DMB. So because again, the revenue forecast is constrained, so there will be constrained growth in revenue. However, the expenses will continue to increase. So there's, a mismatch there. So DMB has asked all agencies to provide a reduction of 5% of their total operating budget. Now, as Tim said, DMB says, it's a less percent than it was last year. Last year was 10%. So 5% does not mean that things are better. But they are saying that it is probably true that they will take all 5%.
And can we pause on the take? I just want to make sure everybody's like sort of aware. So the way that it usually works, or it's worked in the past, is that last year we submitted a 10% budget cut that went to across the street to the county executive. They milled on it, and then in February, they came out with their recommended budget. And so they knew sort of what their projections are. The county executive decided what he was going to put in or not. What we're saying that they're going to be taken means that this year, instead of Brian's going to put it all in, and he's going to leave it up to the BOS to determine what's in or not in. So we don't know right now how much they're actually going to need. So usually it's like, this is the budget, and the county executive gives them some play money, right? You guys have $47 million to play with. Do you want to give staff another percentage increase? Do you want to cut a penny? Do you want to do whatchamacallit? This year, it's going to be like, here's everything. And so you have $100 million that you can put back. And I don't know what that number is. And so it's not necessarily, I don't know what it is. It might be when we get there that the BOS has to take every single thing, but it's more of the county executive is proposing everything and sort of leaving a lot more up to the BOS.
But this exercise is based on economic forecasts that say there are issues.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, 100%. So it does matter because in the past, especially with non-park authority agencies, what doesn't make it, nobody ever knows it happened, right? So other departments put it in, and if the county executive pulls it out, then it's public, it's in the budget documents. But the rest of it, nobody's talking about, nobody knows. In this instant, whether or not it's taken or not, it's all going to be part of the conversation come the budget meetings in February. Every single thing that everybody's proposed.
So what's really going on here is that Brian's tired of being yelled at about what things should go in and not go in. So he's just saying, look, here's the number, guys. I'm just pass it to the board of supervisors. When the constituents complain, they can't complain about Brian.
That was to Kyle, right?
That's not something Jake can run.
But unlike us, where nobody else does it publicly, it creates much more transparency on all those other people that do it in the back room.
Yeah, that's a good point that he makes, because these other agencies and departments we don't know what they were putting before the county executive. Now we will.
So the first reduction was also put forth last year, so it would be a reduction in all non-athletic field mowing. So it'd be $130,000 reduction. The current budget is $617,000. So this would be taking some regularly mowed areas and making it non-mowed, or taking some that normally get mowed every week, moving to every 2 weeks, just figuring out how to come up with that $130,000 cut in the open space mowing.
You want us just to accumulate questions or ask questions?
Next up, athletic field mowing. So this would be cutting the current budget, so completely of $446,000. But really, the proposal being considered by the county is either option one, to increase the athletic services fee by enough to cover the full amount of the $446,000, or the other option being cut that in half. So take mowing from 2 times a week down to 1 time per week. So it would be less of an increase in the athletic services fee. Next proposal is introducing parking fees at select parks. So this would be a $200,000 reduction. So really it would be having parking fees on weekends and holidays between April and October at parks with existing infrastructure. So those two parks would be Burke Lake and Riverbend. So the revenue from those fees charged would cover site managers and then the gate attendant salaries and benefits. And anything that we earn beyond that 200,000 would be used for site projects. So if there's any additional revenue there.
I would also point out, I think this would be looking at if budget cuts were to continue with some part of a phase one, right? But there's other parks as well that would be in consideration for parking fees. These have more of the existing infrastructure, but that there'd be other facilities as well if there's future budget cut year. We have to look at this approach.
Just to be super obvious for people watching, the Burke Lake out of county fee is current, all the rest of that is.
And I hope this would be cash.
I'm sorry.
I said, I hope this would be cash less.
That's certainly something that we like to look at whenever possible when we talk about the infrastructure at the two facilities.
Last time we did this, we had a slight issue.
Is Burke Lake Catholic?
I believe
It's
it's
currently,
national today.
it is a staffed gate. But yes, we do encourage the utilization of credit cards.
We still accept cash, but we encourage.
Correct.
And we have had
Credit
over
card.
the years, a significant shift towards credit card dominating our transactions.
All right, before we break my rule.
I like this one.
So next reduction would be that remaining foundation reduction. So, we put forth 300,000 last year. They took 150 with the plan being that for FY 27, there would be that additional reduction of 150,000. So that would be their foundation expenses, salaries would be covered by the foundation, not by the general. Position reduction, so there's 550,000 in reduction of positions and associated benefits. More details will be coming in the closed session. And then increased WPFO to bond, which we also saw last year. So this is $338,000. So this, the impact would be decreasing the amount of money for projects for the bond because additional staff salaries would be WPFO'd.
WPFO for the new folks is work performed for others, and it's why a bench doesn't cost just what you Google it at. It's we charge staff time to doing projects in the bond.
So in summary, we have the non-athletic field mowing at 130,000. We have athletic field mowing at 446. Parking fees at 200,000. The reduced foundation funding at 150,000, reduced positions at 550, and WPFO at 338. So that gets us up to that 5% cut of 1.8 million.
Okay, now questions.
Questions? Just a comment about them. My opinion is we do far from the smaller jobs there. Currently. We're gonna have to be really strategic about that as consequences of stopping mowers things completely. So they're very expensive to get back to both issues in the future. So it causes long-term issues. So I don't think one of the comments that was made eliminate areas that are going to be moved. I think we really need to focus on frequency and how eliminating the areas so we don't go backwards.
I think for the non-athletic field mowing portion, a lot of the places, and is Torsia here?
Yes.
Okay, just come up when I start in line. But a lot of the places that we're talking about are places that could go no mow for like meadow management and those types of things. There's a lot of places that, and we're getting, to be fair, we're getting to the edge of that with them. This is not a good news type thing. There are places that we wanted to convert to meadow, that those are just good ecologically. So those are the small amount that am I saying that right? The small amount that we're going from don't mow at all mow some to don't mow at all. But I don't think there's anything in this that really is an aesthetic, like unprogrammed, what I call unprogrammed open space that we're never gonna mow. But we might get there
Even the
eventually.
meadows around here take some maintenance.
Yes.
Because of invasives and everything else. So if you don't maintain a meadow at all.
Yeah.
then of course.
Would it be signage like wildflower meadow, pollinator preserve, that kind of thing? Because I mean, I think
Probably
that
not.
does help.
I mean,
From a public point of view, if it's says, like, it's not like we neglect this field versus wildflower meadow.
I 100% agree. Here's the problem, then I just spent the money that we just saved on this nothings that we're trying to install.
But we gotta be careful that these things don't cause or try to minimize the long-term harm.
Everything on here, we're past the long-term harm. I mean, and I'm not saying this as a way of, I'm saying this as a, that's where we are in the county, like, and I credit Chris Leonard for saying this, the first time we cut through fat and the second time we cut through muscle, this is absolutely hitting bone. Like there's nothing, this is not a Washington Monument or put out there. This is everything. Yeah, all of it.
But if I was to digress a little bit, I would say we are at the margin, less than the margin of error of several other agencies in this county. We're the largest landholder in this county. We are a very visible part of this county. Our maintenance it sets the stage or influences the entire outlook of the county. How can we get to the point of we are such a good value and our job is so important and it costs so little in the grand scheme of things that we're so valued subject to these things and can start going positive instead of negative. As we showed 2 years ago, we've been going negative for a decade now, even when we weren't cut because we were not compensated.
Congratulations,
We
Leader.
weren't.
You just put together your supervisor pitch.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying that our big picture is how do we change everyone's desire to have a highly visible thing like parks be as good as it can be in Fairfax? And oh, by the way, it is less than the margin of error of several other agencies. So anyway, enough of my speech.
It's an annual speech.
Right.
For all of us.
Okay, Mike.
Couple things. One, when you're thinking about the athletic field, I can't remember if it's the school program or the park program, it's the adopted field, but there's the friend of the field and adopted field. I get confused over which one's park versus school. I don't think there's been a big push in that space in a while. But it used to be that you would get somebody that would be friend of the field, they'd actually take on the mowing. And that, I mean, as somebody who back in the day had multiple fields that were adopted and had lawnmowers, had people with pickup trucks that would go out with lawnmowers and mow the fields. I think one of the things to think about is how to engage the public and how to engage the folks that use the facilities to be helpful in that process for offsetting some of this is something to think about. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I heard like the pitch of, you know, at like, I don't remember the last time NCS brought all the clubs together for one of their normal deals that we did every year before COVID. And we could make the pitches about those things.
Before you answer, just for the new, this is Kim Eckert. She's the head of operations division director. So continue. Sorry.
So Parks is the adopted field program. It is combined, so user groups sometimes mow, it's combined contract mowing and user. So,
I'm just suggesting that we ought to think about if we're approaching these kinds of issues, some of the groups, and in doing that, areas that may not be able to do that for any variety of reasons, that may free up the money to take care of it in those areas.
I think it's already happened.
And well, it happens in some places and with certain sports more than others. I'm just suggesting that in that space, involving the user groups could help get us to a solution.
Yeah, like doing some messaging now in anticipation of a potential reduction July 1st of next year.
And let's start getting people that want to step up and get systems in place rather than doing it the last minute, we're like, uh-oh. And so that just
I
maybe
do
something
think
to,
that makes some degree of sense. I mean, we gotta be careful in how we say it because it's not a real thing yet,
Right.
but
so
And
you
they,
can,
and they can stop at any time, right? And we do have I don't know how many fields right now, but a good number of fields that are adopted. But we absolutely could do a.
yeah, but cause I think we also, I remember, cause I think we do through contractors, the school fields.
Contract, school fields are all
And it-
contract.
And what happens is all those things happen. You know, all of a sudden people are showing up and the outfield at the Little League field is, 6 inches tall grass, and people are upset, or the soccer field, or the whatever. That being proactive now and trying to encourage people to get back into those programs. There's also a lot of turnover in the organizations themselves and understanding all those pieces. I mean, there aren't many people as foolish as Bill and I to stick around those groups for a million years that remember how all these things work. So that's something I think to think about in terms of that piece of the overall puzzle. And then Jay, you said something, I misunderstood, I think, on the first slide about the non-athletic fields. You're saying that, I understand, that it's not going to be, that the more the programmed use, the whatever the right word was, you're not looking at not mowing those. It's
No, we're looking at shifting stuff, but in the category of areas that we mow now in any iteration to going from that to we're not gonna mow it again, there's an ecological component to that.
Right.
We're not yet at the point where you're gonna be walking in the Spring Hill Rec Center and the grass is up here because we're never gonna, because that area was taken out. That's at a higher level.
That's what I was trying to.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, no.
You will see an impact.
You will,
of it.
100%.
I mean,
I believe
100%.
you.
There's gonna be areas, around nature centers or historic sites that are getting mowed every week right now that we may, because of this cut. need
But there's not gonna be a place where we're doing a summer concert series where all of a sudden we're not mowing the grass. That's what I was just trying to make sure I understood that it's not eliminating it all, it's eliminating some more widely than we would probably like, but that's the way it's gonna be.
And that's the triaging when you're talking to the supervisor, when they're calling up about the area, like, oh, it's ugly when I come in versus there's a concert and it's too, like, that's the hard decisions that him and Sarah have to make going in, but the balloon is balancing on the other, a lot of times we hear about that, nobody's maintaining it, and there's a lot of other stuff that you were pointing out, non-invasives come up along fence lines, if we're not string trimming, all of that stuff that really does impact the maintenance as well.
So any other questions, comments?
On
Yes,
the
Rick.
athletic, maybe you might know this, on the athletic services fee, do we have an idea of, if we were to implement, or you had to implement this, a dollar amount or a percentage amount that the fee would have to go up for these
The
territories?
county's working on it right now to try to figure out, giving, NCS is working on it right now to give,
so that's something
The
we've had
county
actual
option.
conversations. with.
correct,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
correct.
Cause I know that's gonna be a question.
So the goal here. The goal here is to present our 1.8 million. Give the county options if they don't want to take the 446. All of it, if they want to increase fees X amount or Y amount or whatever, they decide to choose your own adventure, but that's later.
But either approach requires some fee.
Right. But I can
No,
just be.
not necessarily.
No,
Either approach.
They could decide to just take the cut and never
Correct.
mow
That's
that.
true too.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Seems
They
unlikely.
don't take it at all.
Three options. I want to be very clear. There are three options. The first option is they take the cut and we reduce the level of service. The second option is they take the cut, we don't reduce the level of service because we make up the money through increased fees. The third option is that this gets off the board entirely. And we continue the same level of service and they don't have to increase athletic fees. I want to make it very clear that all three of those options are available to be chosen.
Well, I suppose it's chosen.
Chosen.
I suppose there's
Thank
a
you.
fourth because one of the things you presented was like basically a split. Fee doesn't go up the full amount, you take some of the cut. So I do have a question on how that would work in practice. Let's pretend for a moment, they just say, yeah, I don't want to raise fees, we're gonna take the cut. So what we're saying is we would never mow an athletic field over an entire fiscal year?
No. We go down from 2 times a week.
Okay, so that's, all right, I'm sorry. I
Reduce
just-
service, yes.
All right, sorry.
But that's why it's so
I missed
important to
that
get the adopt a field, friend a field thing in, because when the parents show up in those spring days after the rain, after some nice rain,
Sure,
it's really tall, they get really upset.
yeah.
But I did a quick calculation. I think in 2025 in the adopted budget, total revenue from athletic services fee was a little over 3.2 million, which this would be basically a 14% of that total fee, which would mean you'd be looking at a theoretical 15% increase if you wanted to do it. But I would note, the athletic council was told last time, accept some things, do some things different. We're not gonna come back and tell you that we're gonna increase the fee.
Okay, any other?
We talked about entrance fees on 2 parks. I can think of a couple more that I'm not gonna think. Because of the ministerial district that you could introduce fees to. How did you choose the ones that you chose?
So the ones that are there already have the infrastructure in order to, so both Burke Lake and Riverbend already have the booth. So that exists. The other ones that we're looking into, and Riverbend would not happen immediately because it has the booth, but it doesn't
Well,
have
if
the
you're
rest of
looking
the stuff.
into them, don't say it.
No,
Okay,
But the other ones that we're talking about later on in different phases, it would look different and it would be, maybe it's a kiosk that you get a ticket and you put it in your car. Maybe there's a lot of different options because we can't all sites don't have the long access. We don't want to also impact traffic and all that stuff.
I have a question right.
Cynthia had a question first. I'm sorry.
Okay, so regarding the foundation funding, is there anything what can be done to affect that number? What was that number?
Could come up with $150,000 from somewhere else. I mean, we've got to give the county $1.8 million. So if you don't like anything on here, and I'll just say this to everyone, something I was gonna say at the end. We've got the September 10th meeting, we've got till September 24th, is that the right date? So if anybody doesn't like anything on here, they have a better idea, we can have that discussion now, we can have it on the 10th, we can have it on the 24th, or anytime in between. But that 1.8 is a number that has to go across the street.
And the foundation funding, that's in budget guidance. So that second half was in budget guidance. We didn't choose to put that on there. That was chosen last year. So they said in the budget guidance of last year, we're only gonna take half and the next half will be taken next year. So
Yeah, one thing in the talk about the entrance fee. It says in the action item that that new funding requests have to follow as new facilities, contract rate increases or critical county operations. Would those kiosks or whatever at other facilities count as new facilities? Or, I mean, in other words, are we saying, oh, there are only 2 parks that this can happen for years until we get money to do something?
those are the only parks that I can implement to make up that $200,000 right this second. I could spend the next year figuring out a different strategy and we can have a different, if this, I mean, I'm just gonna be frank. If we're sitting here next year in the same situation, you're gonna see other parks up there. We will have figured it out between now and next year this time. So we'll have a plan. It doesn't always mean huge amounts of infrastructure. And what we'll do then is we'll factor that into the cut. So we're making $200,000, we estimated from what Josh has proposed, less staff, less, because you have to take out like what you're paying. So this next time for the next two, it'll be less the infrastructure, less the kiosk, less the whatever it takes to implement it. And then we'll calculate it out for the net for what the cut is.
But I guess my point is there would be, in other words, these two parks aren't gonna be left as the only two that this would ever happen to for years until money materializes to do something
Well,
to.
hopefully we don't have to do this again next year, so yes, actually, I think it would be, or these don't get accepted at all.
I'm just afraid of these two being turned on and never turned off and then never going to anybody else and feeling that that's unfair.
Personal privilege, I just want to point out that my food is getting cold, so. But please, yeah. Any other comments or Mike?
Awkward for what you just said, but the reduced positions, is that positions that have not been filled, or would that be a?
We're gonna talk about that in closed session.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. I just have a request. Someone circulate to the board the cuts that were proposed but not taken from the last 2 years and the dollars associated with them.
And also after this presentation could be posted, or it'd be helpful.
First thing in the morning. Yes, just really quick. So as we implement or think about implementing parking fees and other entrance fees to certain parks, like I'm thinking like Burke, right? Where if you are implementing new fees and you're dissuading maybe visitors that are gonna be spending money at the carousel or the other things, do we have a way of kind of trying to figure out how an increase in entrance fees offsets other revenue within those parks?
So, I mean, Burke Lake's already has an out of town entrance fee, and it's still one of the most popular parks. One of the other things with Riverbend is it's right next to national parks, which Great Falls, which has an entrance fee that's significantly more than it is, which is one of the things. So it's like, oh, I don't want to pay $20 now? $20 to go. I can go down to Riverbend and kind of see. Same thing with Scotts Run, right? So I can go walk Great Falls, or I can walk Scotts Run, which is why we have this huge, yes. I think that when we're looking at these and seeing like sort of which days and what we're doing, we're trying to balance those two things, or we don't want to dissuade people from coming. We want to make sure that it's something that, is reasonable, but also why we put on there that the money goes back to site so that they can see the fruits of this. So this is not necessarily something that's going to go back. I mean, we'd love to go back into revenue, but it's nicer to be like, oh, I'd love to come back here if we have to take these cuts. I'd love to come back here in 4 years and show the roof on Frying Pan Farm Park or on Burke Lake, ice cream parlor. Thank you.
And a nice
It says this was brought to you by the parking fees that were, there. So I think that that's a little bit of, not a compromise, but a way of sort of being able to see it coming.
Just on this specific issue though, I'll say it now because it will be an issue with the community and everything else, is that the biggest, I think, pushback from a lot of folks right there is going to be, oh, wait, everybody's gonna park in my neighborhood and walk in. Which has been a problem in the past with out of county people and stuff. But when it's all of a sudden everybody, there will be a very big concern about, they're gonna line my street, they're gonna walk through this path that we, the Park Authority didn't make, but everybody's walking through and has made themselves in those different areas. And I remember 10 years ago, whatever it was, I went and, because the community was upset, and we went to like 6 or 8 places that were like that, where you had these kind of man-made walked upon trails into the parks because of county thing. I mean,
Well,
so,
Burke Lake Park, they already park on 123.
oh, I know.
That's before the entrance. I'm sure there's out of county people
Yeah,
parking on
right.
123 on the
But
weekend.
that's why I'm just saying that we may not talk about that as much in terms of the impact you're about, wait, we're gonna sell less ice cream, we're gonna not have as many people on the train. But the community impact on that is going to be significant. And as Kyle and I have learned in other things back when he was in the supervisor's office, the perception of the impact will be 80 times worse than whatever the impact ends up being.
Any other questions or comments? This is listed as a presentation. Are you coming back to this committee at the September 9th meeting? 10th meeting?
So the 10th will be the public comment time. So we'll do just a quick recap of what's on here, but have a public comment period for that meeting. But the 24th will be the date that we come back for the actual endorsement. Again, with any.
But you're coming back to the committee in between, right?
Yeah, it's coming back on the 10th and the 24th. So we have opportunities to discuss these. People can present other ideas. We can bat them around. That's part of why I asked, just to remind everyone what we did in the last 2 years. And other things are out there. If anyone has any other bright ideas, we can kick them around, but we do have to, by the end of the day on the 24th, have to put it across the street.
So Josh, Katie, thank you for the presentations. Appreciate your patience.
We do have one more quick thing, which is at the same time we talk budget cuts, we also talk budget requests, which I know is ironic. So we'll quickly go through this for dinner.
So quickly, zero waste, the personnel request at 1.2 million. So just a little recap, we did phase 1, so we got FY24 carryover, 500,000 for capital, and then FY25 budget with 544,000 for personnel. So that was phase 1, we got those two. Phase two, it's pending approval by the Board of Supervisors. We got 1.4 million in capital for phase two, and then we're requesting the personnel piece for this, in this FY 27 request, for 12 merit positions. Based on the budget guidance that we've gotten from statements in the FY 25 carryover, that the recurring cost for zero waste will be funded in the FY 27 budget.
So we asked, remember, this is an ordinance. We asked for an FY 24. We proposed to do this in 3 phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. We got phase 1 in FY 24. We did not receive phase 2 in FY 25. Right?
Yeah, we did not receive an FY
Right.
25.
And we did not receive anything in FY 26. So this year, when we didn't receive anything in FY 26, we were just gonna continue to ask for phase 2. And then Chairman McKay put in the budget guidance that he would like us to do both phase 2 and phase 3 in the next year. So this is a direct request from the chairman for budget.
And so we just got the pending approval in carryover the equipment for what's needed for what's left, and then.
When did the BOS vote on carryover?
27th or something like that.
It's 27.
Whatever that Tuesday
Yeah.
is.
We'll come back after that meeting to formally present the carryover, what we ended up getting. But that's already in the package proposed, and then this is the, personnel and operating associates.
Tuesday. Sounds good.
OBI, so this is a partial re-request of what we requested last year. This is an estimated amount. We're still finalizing the numbers, but our estimate is at 1.2 million. So you can see in the table the 15-ish parks that were requested last year in FY 26. We are only requesting re-requesting 5 of those parks and the money needed for that. So we requested almost 1.6 in 26, so we're reducing that, only 5 parks at about 1.2, and that would include operating costs, capital, and then 7 merit and 3 temporary.
Why don't we kick off the other 10?
So their smaller amounts they're still important, but we sort of absorbed them, not that we've absorbed them totally. The ones that are
We've done
left,
exactly what we told the board we wanted to stop doing.
well, we already did it. So Hilltop, so the other ones that we're leaving on there because they're more recent and specifically because they were given to me. I want to make that point. Hilltop Park,
Yeah.
not a park that we decided on. It was proffered and it was given to us by the BOS. So
Right.
Laurel Hill Central Green was a years and years and years ago commitment. We got it for a song, but we had to develop all of the stuff that's out there in X amount of years, and we've done that, and we've never received the thing. Plus, because Laurel Hill is so close to Woodland, to Overlook Lorton Landfill, we think we could do those with the same staff with a little bit of a smaller increase, not the 2 together. Overlook Ridge Lorton Landfill, we need to make this decision now. That's required for the developer for them to build it. My question now is, am I opening the gate? We don't have that. That decision needs to be made now. And then Scotts Run Athletic Field, again, in restroom, that was proper on BOS. That is a field on BOS property that we are maintaining, that we have not received funds to maintain. This is the artificial turf field and restroom thing with the fire station. And then Woodland Stewardship Education Center, I mean, it was in the first 2 seconds of the status of the county flyover of Woodland Stewardship Education Center with 3 supervisors. We have a whole facility that we did not get any staff to run. So the question is, do I keep it open right now, or do we close it? Because I didn't ever got staff. So that's why those ones are on there. We understand, and we do understand. We understand this is a horrible year. So what could we deal with? We're in talks with DMB, understanding that even though we're not asking for those, it's still a cumulative thing that later on we're gonna have to get back. So when we come back in 28, 29, why are numbers so high? It's because we're underwater because we didn't get the stuff for the other stuff.
So Hilltop, is that an athletic field?
Correct. It's what is that Hilltop?
Rectangles, I believe.
Yeah.
Rectangle fields. It is not open yet, it's still in development.
I know, I pass by it every day.
Okay, next item, contract rate increase. So we're still working through the amount that we would request from DMB. We did not do this last year, so we did get clearance from them to ask for 2 years worth of contract rate increase. So we are working on that, so we will come forward with that number next time we meet. And the last just in review, so we have zero waste at 1.2 million, OBI funding at almost 1.2. We'll figure out that contract rate increase. So what we have so far is 2.4 million in requests.
And for those watching, what's also not on here, but this is sort of assumed is any kind of cost of living increase, salary increase for staff there. That's told to us, so it'll just be added on there. We don't necessarily request it. It's just an assumption that it's requested.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again. Seeing no questions or comments on that, and the budget committee is adjourned.
All right, and we will be in recess till about 8 o'clock.
Hey, good, what are you? Living the dream.
Hey, I'm living it.
Oh, I got you.
You know, there's.
That's a
Oh, okay.
It's good.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
You're coming today. Don't get work today.
This turn. Yes.
They're not good today. Okay,
So.
I didn't get an invitation yet, so I don't know when the date is. I know we're meeting again on the 5th. I was thinking if we were meeting the day before.
All right, we are back in session. The formal portion of our board meeting. Katie, do we have any speakers with us?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have any speakers signed up.
I will give it an admin item. We have only one, it's the adoption of the minutes of the July 9th, 2025 Park Authority Board meeting. Do I have a motion? And a second. I understand we're competing with. Any discussion on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Countywide action item number 1 is the recommended approval of allocating bridge funding to rec center and park facility projects. Do I have a motion? So moved. And a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Countywide action item number 2 is the recommended approval of the FY 2025 budget carryover for Fund 30400, which is the Park Authority Bond Construction Fund. Do I have a motion? So moved. And a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Countywide action item number 3 is the recommended approval of the FY 2025 carryover and budget review and the FY 2026 revised budget for Fund 80300, which is the Park Improvement Fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And then finally, countywide action item number 4 is the recommended approval of the FY 2025 carryover and budget review and the FY 2026 revised budget for Fund 80000, which is Park Revenue and Operating. And a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that motion carries. We have 3 information items this evening. Info 1 is the fiscal year 2027 budget development and fee calendar for 2026. Info 2 is the FY 2025 carryover budget review for Fund 10001, Park Authority General Fund, and Info 3 is the list of FY 2025 unencumbered carryover requests items, and all of these were presented to and reviewed by the Park Authority during our committee meetings held on July 9, 2025. Chairman matters. Last week, I think, Allison, maybe a little longer ago than that, sent out an email to all of us about the Ellie Doyle Awards, reminding all of you to RSVP. The event is Saturday, September 13th at Laurel Hill Golf Club. We want you to RSVP by When do we want RSVPs by?
Friday.
By Friday, so you've got 48 more hours. What time on the 13th?
6:30.
6:30 PM on September 13th is the event itself. Federation of Friends is right here next week at 5:30 PM. Budget items that we discussed tonight are gonna be a big focus of that. If anyone's able to be here, be great to have you. I'll be here. 5:30 right here, same exact room, day of next week. Staying on the budget topic, I've seen a number, I don't think it's been everyone yet, but I've seen a number of meetings scheduled with BOS members for kind of our fall budget discussions. Primarily to go over these cuts we're likely to propose in another month, but I'm sure there'll be some other items we bring up when the time comes. If you haven't seen an invite come across your email account yet, be sure to just check in with Allison, make sure it's been scheduled. I know it hasn't been scheduled yet, we're still working on a few. One other thing, yesterday Allison sent around an updated committee list. Filling the slots that Ken just vacated, that's all that was changed there. So I'd be looking to get that ratified. If I could get thank you, and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and I'm gonna.
Okay, directors matters.
Sure.
So one of the things that we're doing, one of the things that we're doing largely because of budget cuts, we usually around now have, or the last few years, have had an employee appreciation event. We're not doing that this year for costs, and we're trying to keep costs down, so we're doing less cuts. And so instead, what we have done is doing an ice cream truck. I put in soft quotes, to take around ice cream to our man sites. We to date are, and this is, the ice cream cones are just to explain to, I'm sure you all know, but to the people watching, how long that takes. It might be like, oh, sure, what is it, like an hour? No, we're 2 of 6 days complete in doing that. We've visited 12 of 40 sites. That includes 10 hours on the road and 115 miles traveled. Right now, that's us at Twin Lake being very creative on how to get the cooler around. Staff have been appreciative. We stop, we give ice cream, but we also just have conversations and talk about their jobs and really appreciate them for everything that they do. It's important that we do this in the summer because it's just when people start to get a breath from all the camps ending. So we're almost, well, not almost that, we're not even halfway, but 2 of 6 days. Next slide. Here's some photos of that. I'm going out to some sites. It's Huntley Meadow, there's Cup Run, there's Watermine, Area 3, MLK Pool, Twin Lakes, where's that one in the middle? Right, where's that one in the middle, right?
Huntley's in the middle.
Middle, and what's the one right to the right of Huntley?
Franconia?
Franconia. So that's just the beginning, and just for, not that it matters, but we're not chintzy. We're gonna go down, not chintzy little, what you call it, we're giving ice cream cones and good stuff. Next slide. No generic. Okay, if Andy can stand up. We want to welcome Andy Grable to Park Authority. He is the new public information officer. Do you want to introduce yourself? Because
Yes.
I'm sure you're not used to speaking in public.
No problem.
Like to, yeah.
Hi, nice to be here. My first board meeting. My name's Andy Grable. I am joining the Park Authority after spending many years doing public affairs and communications for nonprofit organizations and parks, conservation, historic preservation, and education. So really happy to be here and joining the Park Authority.
I see Ben. So 2025 summer community outreach. So this summer we went beyond our normal footprint and connected with a lot of neighborhoods during summer break. This is just some of the things that we did. Special thanks to Stewardship and Planning, RMI, Marcom, and our summer interns for their time and friendly faces to reach beyond our sites. Some of the things that we went, Children's Resource Fair at Centerville, Mount Vernon District Summer Palooza, London Town Community Day, Senior Health Fair, Hunter Woods Fellowship House, Back to School Resource Fair in Lorton, Back to School Community Day at Bailey's Community Center, Multicultural Fair at St. Mark's Church, Back to School Picnic, Centerville. It's really great when we do things in our own parks. Really, if we're trying to bring people into parks, we really need to go outside of our usual user groups and really invite them. And next slide. Yes.
Don't go to the next slide quite yet. What are we doing at these? I mean, we got a booth set up and we're just talking about the
I think
parks.
the next slide is this, it continues this, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's exactly what happens. We have our table set up with Wang and part of our community outreach team and members of the other divisions, where we have essentially a display to go over all of our services as well as our park takes so that everyone can know how to register and any other promotional materials for upcoming programs.
And from marketing and communications.
Thank you.
How are we choosing the sites we're at? 'Cause I'm sure there's a bazillion of these opportunities out there and
Yes, a lot of them are invitation and relationship based, just how long we've been partnering over the years. But also we try to select the programs based on who we're not seeing in our current programs. So anyone from marginalized communities, or just, other areas where we don't necessarily have immediate reach. That's how we try to prioritize our events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love, obviously, well, not obviously, but seeing all the wonderful things our staff do. But I also kind of like organically coming across what our staff do in the wild. And so I'm on my just normal walk on a Saturday in Frying Pan Farm Park in the woods, and there's the deer exposure. We walk it.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of people and they're doing stuff. And so I stopped and talked about what they were doing. And Rita was nice enough to explain to me all of the work that they did. So what they were doing in there at that exposure was a project that was handed over from Helping Our Lands Heal. For those of you who were here 2.5 years ago, we got that original money, I think it was FY 24, 25, I don't remember which one, got the Landscape Legacy Program. And so what happened was that they transferred some of those sites over to Landscape Legacy. And so this is a bunch of volunteers who were in there, and they were picking up stilt grass out of the enclosures mechanically because they did not want to use any pesticides or herbicides in there. And that's what they do. So these are some of the other ones that are getting transferred over: Fry House and Pipeline, right, Frying Pan Farm Park that we were there, and Oakmont Maintenance Facility. So I got to take a little selfie. I was 2.5 miles into my walk. But I just love seeing people doing stuff in parks, and these are a lot of the master gardeners who volunteer to do it. The couple on the right, when I do my walks, I see she is there, out there almost on a daily basis, pulling weeds. And so we really appreciate all of our volunteers, including the ones that are sitting here on our board. But non-native invasives, that's sometimes a thankless, never-ending gig. So we thank them. Next slide. And upcoming events. We have so many that there are going to be 2 slides. So some upcoming events that we have coming up. Tuesday, we have the All Abilities Park Informational Meeting. That's going to be virtual at 7 o'clock. On Wednesday, we have our Federation of Friends meeting. See, I'm stumbling over it because I have to read the actual time. Fellowship of Friends. Federation of Friends meeting on Wednesday. On Saturday is the famous Dog Days. I have to say before that is the last, is it Saturday? Is Watermine closed?
Oh, man.
When's the last day of Watermine?
Labor Day. Monday. It's closed on during the week.
Dog Days is the week after that. Got it. Okay. So Dog Days is on the 6th on Saturday, where it's a fundraising. If you have a little pooch or a big pooch, come on down and come to the Dog Days. Pretty awesome. Saturday on the 7th, we have Clemmy John Tree Park Open House. 10 to 3. We have the PC9 Club Championship at Pinecrest Golf Course on the 7th. As Kyle had mentioned, Ellie Doyle's are on the 13th at Laurel Hill Golf Club. That's at 6:30 p.m. Some other stuff we have going on, Bug Fest at Lake Accotink on Saturday the 20th. Also on the 20th is Historic Oak Hill Open House. On Saturday the 23rd, we have the rec center open houses for all rec centers all day. I highly encourage you, if you have social media or throwing it out there to put, we can get you like a little thing to send out. It's open to anybody, so to bring people in who've never tried a rec center before. It's free, am I lying? It's free. You know, so that's a really wonderful thing. Friday the 26th, the Strawberry Park, the ribbon cutting and fall festival preview, Mosaic District. And then on the 20th, yes, ma'am. Sure.
Saturday, the 23rd or Saturday, the 20th, you can't have two Saturdays.
So it's Tuesday, the 23rd.
There
and
you
it's
go.
from 4 to 7.
Oh, Tuesday the 23rd, sorry, not Saturday,
Thank
thank you. Yes, you're right. Tuesday, shouldn't you miss
At 4 to 7 p.m.
sorry, Tuesday the 23rd,
Tuesday, the 23rd.
yes, rec center open house. We'll correct it before we send it out to you guys.
And it's 4 to 7, not all day.
4 to 7?
Yeah, that's what it's.
4 to 7. Saturday, the 27th is National Public Lands Day. There's going to be volunteer events all throughout the county. We'll let you know where those sites are. Date. And then on the 2nd of October, one of the things that we've added, we have some new Park Authority Board members, but we also have a lot of new staffers in the BOS. We've never really come together and sort of given them an orientation on sort of everything. So orientation / info session. We're gonna start that this year on the 2nd at 1 o'clock. We've invited all of the staffers from all of the BOS offices. We're gonna go through, the major thing we're gonna do this time is the CIP presentation. So the order would be, you guys will have seen the CIP presentation. We'll present it to the Brian, county executives, present it to the planning, and then present it to the staffers. I think that that's a really good opportunity to sort of reconcile the fact that, you know, if you don't get the money, it's going someplace else, or how the whole CIP works, so you understand where all of the money sort of goes. So that's there. If you have any items that maybe you continue to explain to the staffers that you think that would benefit from a little bit of a deep dive, please let us know. We can add it on to that thing. But it's gonna look a lot like the orientations that you guys, the new folks have had. And then farmers markets are still open in each district.
All right, let's go around the horn. Michael? We have a long night.
Please.
Yeah.
Showed up. Glenwood.
The thing I always say is, please don't wait to get up to speed, jump right in, fresh perspective.
Rick?
I second that.
Alvin?
Welcome. Mike.
Mike,
Michael? Thank you for the warm welcome. Dr. Carter?
I just want to say that the Ellie Doyle Awards this year will be absolutely phenomenal because the staff is really on it and it's really, really going to be great. Every second of it.
Looking forward
Thank
to it.
you all.
Tim? All right. Anything else before we go into closed session? All right. We will now go into closed session.
You gotta wait for this, so I'm good.
No, you gotta get in.
No.
You have to read.
We have to read. Yes.
Yeah.
So, this part is open, so you have to read it first.
Oh, okay. I move the Park Authority Board recess and convene in closed session for discussion and consideration of matters enumerated in Virginia Code 2-3711 and listed in the agenda for this meeting as follows. A, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of publicly held real property for a public purpose, or of the disposition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. A1, discussion of negotiations with a potential PPEA partner regarding Grist Mill Park in Mount Vernon District. And E, discussion of a personnel matter pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8. Discussion of the FY 27 budget impacts on personnel.
Can hack on a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and once the doors been closed and we're offline. Dr. Carter, you have a motion for us?
Move the Park Authority Board return to open session.
Second.
I move the Park Authority.
Excuse me, sorry, I gotta call for a vote first. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and I'll call for certification of topics discussed in closed session, and this requires a roll call. Dr. Carter, you have a motion?
I do. I move the Park Authority Board certify that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Virginia Code 2.2-3712, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by.
Second. All right, and we'll go around in alphabetical order. Board members can just state their position, either aye or nay. Abena?
Aye.
Bill? Dr. Carter?
Aye.
Linwood?
Aye.
Tim? Aye. Rick?
Aye.
Faisal not here. Jose?
Aye.
Mike? Reynolds? Aye. Mike Thompson?
Aye.
Jonah?
Aye.
The chairman also votes in the affirmative. That motion passes, or yes. And then Linwood, you have a motion for us.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve staff's recommendation in regards to Grist Mill.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And the second item in closed session was info only, no action required there. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the order? We are adjourned, and I'll see you all hopefully in a week from today. If not, see you in 2 weeks.